I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad.
Good.
How's the travel up to Glasgow?
The travel up was long. I should have flown. In hindsight, I should have flown. But you know what? There's plenty of time to think on a 4.5-hour train journey. So lots of ideas for future Hopscotch, maybe up here and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was good. It was fine.
Yeah. Do you have the tunes on the train up?
What was I listening to? Well, I was doing my DJ set on the way up, and I'm quite actually meticulous with that. But I went out last night and I felt hideously hungover this morning. So I just chucked everything onto the USB and we'll see how it goes later on. But in terms of, I wasn't really listening to anything on the way up actually, but in terms of what I'm listening to at the moment, a lot of soul wax actually.
Yeah.
A lot of soul wax.
Oh, cool.
And like...
Are they Belgium? Are they from?
They're American, I think.
Is that a studio they've got in Belgium or
Oh,
something? Maybe something like that.
Yeah. I'm not, to be honest, too sort of on with who they are and where they are and that's, but I've just been soaking up the music a lot more. I knew of them and mainly knew the remixes they've done, to be honest with you. If you go like really far back into first album territory, they're a grunge band. Sound like Soundgarden, something like that. So yeah, I've just been like deep in that and just like soaking it up.
How much music do you reckon you listen to like on average a week? You must have got your Spotify Wrapped back a few weeks back, did you?
You know what? I tell you what. Actually, my Spotify Wrapped is not actually that impressive because like you said, I spend all week listening to so much that when I stop listening, I don't really want to listen to music, if that makes sense. Or when I do, it's just like the stuff that I know and love and comfortable with, and just want to soak up and chill out and not really have to necessarily concentrate on.
Yeah.
Like I listen to the soul wax stuff, for example, if we're on a train up or whatever it is, or I've got a bit of spare time just to sort of soak something up and do a bit of research, I suppose, but and sort of enrich my knowledge. But yeah, in terms of actually numbers during the week, I couldn't really tell you how much, but it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. I spend a lot of my time listening to music. Yeah.
How do you find out about a lot of your stuff? Because like the Glasgow bands, for instance, that you've got on tonight and you play on your show a lot of the time, they're not something. How do they come into your field of view? How do you first discover bands like that?
So sometimes it's through supports. Sometimes it's radio pluggers who are sending the music through. I mean, do you know about radio plugging or anything like that? Okay, I'll explain it for people who maybe don't know. But I mean, basically, radio plugging is bands pay a company or someone to take their music to radio stations and plug it, basically, and give them a big talk up and try and convince them to play it. So that's, to be honest, the pluggers is the main sort of source. Support slots is a really good one as well. And myself, I'm just at a lot of gigs anyway.
Yeah. You out to one most nights? Or?
Yeah, I would not maybe most nights. The show kind of dictates as and when.
Yeah,
just because we pre-record a lot of the interviews before the show, so we can get them sounding really nice and tight for the show. So that takes up a bit of time for gigs and whatever. But where I can, I'd say I'm doing at least one a week, definitely. At least one a week. Yeah.
And the bands you have on tonight, again, this is obviously your first time in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Does seeing Glasgow change the way you think about those bands, and does it maybe add something to the music, and does it make a little bit of sense? Or?
About them being from Glasgow?
Yeah, can you see it, like, when you're here?
Yeah, as in when I come across one of these bands and I can sort of be like, that
Can you tell us from a Glasgow?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the way these, I mean, I think that maybe the anomalies in that would probably be Ninth Wave, actually. I think they've got perhaps the vegan leather actually as well. I know they're not quite Glasgow, but
they're kind of doing something different though.
They're doing, like you said, they're doing something different, just like the Ninth Wave as well, and they kind of stick out a little bit in their own fields. But I think everyone else around that, there's I don't know what it is. It's just something really, really exciting about this place at the moment, and the kids, the young people are picking up these guitars or whatever, and just really writing how they're feeling, and it's translating really, really well across the music, not just in sound but lyrically as well. That's one thing that for me is really important when I'm listening to new music, is the lyrics and how people are talking within the music, because communicating how you're feeling in a song is a really difficult thing to do, and if someone can do that well, that's really impressive for me. And I always use that debut album from Arctic Monkeys as a kind of like a barometer or like a marker for that sort of level, because Alex was incredible at narrating life in Sheffield as a 16, 17-year-old
You pointed out quite well as well similar to what the Dunts do now with Glasgow. I remember you said on the show when you interviewed them.
And Declan as well.
Yeah,
Declan West as well, but do it brilliantly. He's out there singing about sticky dance floors and snogging one night stands and snogging people on there, and does it so eloquently, and then also crying on your mate's shoulder about something quite deep and personal at the same time. To go from one extreme to the other is really impressive in the songwriting.
Without Monkeys as well, were they one of the bands that hooked you? Who was it that first hit you and reeled you into music? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, they are my favourite band without a doubt. Yeah, they're the same. Yeah, I mean, I think most people you speak to within guitar music, they'll feel the same about it. It's just that, and I think that's how powerful lyrics can be. Alex narrated, as I said, that whole experience of being young and living in a town and growing up there so well and so eloquently, and actually in quite a funny way at times, because
it's very humorous. Some of the things they've got. Yeah.
The observations he picks up on in that album, it's like, oh my god, I've been there a million times, waiting in that queue and getting kicked out by the bouncer, and then you're thinking about all those times that you've done it with your mates or whatever, and it evokes a lot of emotion when you listen to it. I think, and again, just going back to the lyric thing, that's why it's so important for me.
It's interesting to see how he's progressed as a lyricist as well, and where he's gone on the albums that follow it since. I mean, look at Tranquility Base, for example.
I know. Can you imagine, if you listen to the first one, that he would ever produce something like that? It's amazing. But I think actually that, and I was talking about this with Matt from the Amazons yesterday, and that progression of how bands kind of grow through themselves. And I think recently bands have been it's not been the easiest for bands, for number one, and I think because of that, they've been a little bit tentative to sort of push the boat out a little bit, try something different and go down these different routes, because you don't want to necessarily scare people off. But the fact of the matter is all these people that are listening to alternative music are listening to all different types of music at exactly the same time. That's how people are consuming it all.
Indie's changed a bit as well, what indie is.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't really like the term indie. I know my show is called The Indie Show.
It's broad.
Yeah, it's broad.
But I mean, when you listen to your show, that's a perfect example. The amount of different music that you play on the indie show. I mean, you had Pendulum on last night.
Yeah, we did.
Thursday night, yeah.
Yeah, we went down. We went a little rogue. We went Pendulum Slam. We played
Chasing Status
with Plan B and Simian Mobile Disco. Yeah, and it all went a little bit rogue towards the end of the show. It was good fun though. But you're exactly right. Indie has always been a broad kind of term for different styles, but I think people have maybe in the UK, I don't know, but kind of got caught up in this sort of cycle of guitar music and not being able to branch out and push out at all. But it's happening now.
Yeah, I remember speaking to Swimmers, Transmit spoke to them actually, and they were talking about how with their last album that they put out, each track is quite different, and they say because it's the way they listen to music with playlists, and you can really see how that's impacted all the bands. Declan Welsh is another one. When you look at his debut album, a lot of different genres he's going through with
definitely that. Mate, definitely. And that's a really important thing as well, I think, because being able to, for these bands to be able to step out there and feel comfortable enough to express themselves with the different types of music that they like is only going to be good for the genre and its development, because pushing boundaries is what it's all about. That's how the greats come about, because they push the boundaries in whatever direction that might have been.
100%. Something I wanted to ask about as well, because I'm quite interested in. How did your love of music, that you're speaking so enthusiastically about, there, translate to wanting to be a DJ? How did that start to come about?
It was actually the other way around.
Really?
So I wanted to be a DJ, a presenter first and foremost. That was like when I was 15. My dad was driving me to school, and we're sitting there with Chris Moyles on The Breakfast Show as a presenter. It was quite a cliche sort of story, because he was just the pinnacle at that point. But I was just like, this sounds like so much fun, this job. I want to do this job. And for me, that's all I had my focus on from when I was 15 years old. But it wasn't until I went to university and I started student radio that when I actually really started to get into music. And I was listening to Zayn a lot on Radio 1.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Zayn.
I was listening to Hugh a lot on Radio 1 as well. And although very different in styles, both infectiously enthusiastic about what they were talking about. And I just fell in. I liked indie music. I knew I liked it, but I kept falling. I kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. I was like spiraling through this like dream of all this different music, and then I'm finding myself in drum and bass and heavy metal and hip hop and house music and everything. And I knew that I loved everything. But I think refining, in terms of translating that love to the radio and the presenting, it was perhaps about me finding my niche a little bit and what was my core. What did I really love at the core? What was I really passionate about? Well, I know that was indie music. I know that was guitar music. And why did I love it? And then for me, it was just about communicating that to an audience and trying to explain the feelings I felt when I listened to it to them and relate to them. And I think with the show, I feel like that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Do you think that's something you had from the off the student radio? Was that always kind of present in what you do?
The passion for the music.
Yeah, and like the way that it translates and people resonate with it. And
yeah. Oh, I was terrible at it. Don't get me wrong. Like when you start, it's like anything. Like you're terrible at it, right? When you start out, but you have to just keep practicing, and keep going and going and going and going. And I did, and I persevered, and I got all the feedback and listened to the feedback and worked on it. And yeah, it's. I don't want it to sound pretentious when I say it, but it's kind of an art in a way, being able to communicate like that, because you're not talking normally like you and me are now. I'm in there on my own. Well, I've got my producers in there, but I'm just talking to the microphone.
I think you have to hook people in. The other thing is, and it's probably why radio edits happen as well. You have to have momentum in a radio show.
Yes.
You have to keep people engaged and keep it going and keep it bounding forward.
That was the number one thing for us on the show when we first started out. You completely hit the nail on the head there. The momentum of the show and the pace of it and the energy of it was key. Because I think Radio 1 didn't necessarily... Hugh was championing guitar music, but his show was very broad. Yeah. Radio 1 didn't have a very specific indie show, guitar show, that really focused on it and had real thorough energy behind it. And I think guitar music was kind of losing its way at Radio 1 just slightly, but credit to them because they recognised that and decided to change things up a little bit, brought me in, and for me, with my background in guitar music and loving that so much, I knew what I needed to do before they'd even told me. I knew I needed to go in there and fire a rocket up its arse, right, and just really get it going and get the fire and the flame going and get people excited and passionate, and not just the people that are genuine fans of it already, but also the people that stumble across the show and the people that maybe don't necessarily listen to this type of music, but communicate to them as to why they should maybe check it out.
The aims that you kind of set down that you described there, what other stuff did you kind of lay down before you went in? Do you have quite a clear plan? It sounds like
before we started the show,
it sounds like you knew what you wanted to do with it.
Yeah, I think in terms of the presentation style, what I just explained there, definitely knew how I wanted to go about that and do that, and how I would kind of connect with people. In terms of what we actually wanted to achieve with the show and what we wanted to get out of it, we wanted to be that platform for bands to be able to kickstart at radio, transition through into Annie, and into daytime, and that is our common goal. The next big thing, it starts with us, and it's not just here's a play, and here's another play. That's it. We're moving on to the next thing, because there is can I swear?
Go for it.
There is a shitload of stuff out there, right? There is loads of really good music out there, but none of these bands, none of these artists will make it unless I hammer the song. Because if I play it once, that select number of people that are listening at that moment will hear that song, and that's it. If I play it 12, 15 times, so many more people are going to hear it. That also shows to the people listening that I'm very passionate about the song and I really believe in it, and that I think they could go somewhere. So I think really getting fully behind these bands and artists was a really important thing from the offset.
Yeah, I mean, you have to commit, because not everyone is going to... There's probably quite a small portion of listeners listen to the show every night, start to finish.
Yes.
So you do just kind of have to kind of increase those odds of people picking up on it.
Exactly that, mate, yeah.
Do you think you've discovered more music as well since you started doing it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, the show that I do, when Hugh was doing it, that's where I was discovering my bands and my new music anyway. But having done the show, you're kind of one step ahead of the game. So, yeah, we're playing all this stuff, but in the background we know what's coming through and what's potentially going to sort of make a bit of a riff when we eventually play it in a couple of weeks' time or whatever. So, yeah, definitely.
So do you know as soon as you hear a track that's probably going to be one that you're going to push?
I think so, yeah.
Like something like, for instance, Rolling Mo. I know you pushed their last one, Happy When You Die. Such a tune.
Great tune.
Did you know as soon as you heard that one that you were going to...
A lot of it is about gut instinct.
It's all based on emotion, isn't it?
Yeah.
The reaction to it.
I say obviously not naming names, but I'd say there's probably been one, maybe two, that maybe I felt like that I got wrong, or that weren't actually quite at the level that we maybe thought they were at.
Yeah.
But most of it, 9 times out of 10 times, 10 times out of 10, it's gut instinct, and I think you've got to trust that, because that's why I loved the music that I loved so much. When I listened to Arctic Monkeys, when I listened to Foals, when I listened to all those bands, I knew I loved them because I felt the energy in my gut and the fight and the fire for it.
Yeah.
And I feel that same thing when I listen to the new bands or the new artists that we listen to and then play on the show as well.
Yeah. You mentioned Foals there as well, because I remember I watched you did the thing with them after the first part of the album came out. Yeah. When you hear a band now, do you think I want to interview that band? Is that something that kind of comes as soon as you hear that you're really passionate about?
Yeah, definitely.
Did the questions start forming that early on as soon as you hear it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm trying to think of an example actually. There's this guy called Kenny Hoopla, who is out in America. I can't actually remember exactly where, but he's out in America, and he's merging hip hop and alternative music together, kind of in a similar vein to maybe a Bakar or a Masterpiece, that sort of thing. And I heard this thing, and he referenced. Do you know the band? What are they called? Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember what they're called now. But it's a great band, a great indie band that he was referencing, and I was like, wow, I haven't heard that band in ages. Like, how has he heard them as well? And suddenly all these questions just started sort of floating down and forming down. I was like getting my phone out, like writing them down.
So you have to jot them down as soon as you hear them,
Yeah.
just in case you end up speaking them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just get them down and go. And that also just brings up a nice natural conversation as well when you're talking to these people.
Yeah. Do you think some of the questions are like the good ones just stick with you though, and maybe you don't need to? I mean, some of the things we're speaking about now, I've not got them written down. They're kind of just coming out because of things that stick in your head.
Yeah, it's for me. As long as you're going into that interview and you have done your research and you know exactly, pretty much everything about this band and artist, you can shape the interview how you want, but it can still be a natural conversation. So we can be going down a route of influences, perhaps, and I'll know about those influences already because I've done my research, but I can branch that, but I'll know that maybe one specific one came from a really funny story or funny place, and I'd be like, that one feels a bit out of place, or that one doesn't feel. There's something. I feel like there's something else here with that one, and interesting. And oh well, yeah, there's this. So, and that is a natural conversation, but I'm kind of engineering it at the same time, if that makes sense. I don't want people to listen and be like, oh, it's all fake then, because it's not, because it is all genuine passion. But my job as the presenter is to know as much as possible about these bands and artists and communicate that to the people at home so they can get all the information and know how that they need to enjoy these bands and artists.
So do you have a broader idea of the interview structure in your head as you're going through it?
Yeah.
So do you know where you start and where you want to end up?
Yeah, especially in the smaller, concise interviews. If we're doing a bit more of a longer form interview for something else, then I'll just let it flow naturally. But when it comes to maybe like the next wave interviews, for example, which need to be about 3 minutes long, and I need to get as much information out of them as possible.
It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. So I need to make sure my questions are spot on. They're exactly what the audience needs to know about, and kind of make it flow where I can.
Yeah. Do you prefer the conversational style, or do you prefer the next level? Yeah.
Conversational's way better. Yeah. I usually write my questions down, but I don't look at the paper. They're just there in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, just in case you did.
Just in case.
When you started off, because I also went to Kerrang after the student radio, were you interviewing bands on that station from the early days, or when did the kind of
So I did. I wasn't interviewing them on the show, but I used the clout of Kerrang to go to like Reading Festival, for example, and set up interviews with bands, and they never went out on air, but they were just practice for me. And this is actually quite funny. I was thinking about it because I was listening to Ed Shikari the other day, and great band, and I was interviewing them at Reading. I meticulously went over every single album to the point where I was dissecting the influences into such intense detail about their electronic influences, and I was like, yeah, this one's quite trancey, but this one's a little bit more like drum and bass and almost dubsteppy at times. Was that a sign of the times and all that sort of thing? And they, like all this barrage of information was coming flying at them, and I remember the look on Raoul's face and him just like, who is this guy? Like, why is he so intense about our music? And like that when I look back at it was so embarrassing. Like, it was so embarrassing, but you have to make those mistakes, and that's what I was saying earlier on. You have to practice and make those mistakes before you can go on and do good.
How long do you feel you did radio for before you started to nail it? You started to really hit your kind of sweet spot and your stride, and you knew how to like get the momentum and keep it.
Well, at every station I've been at, I would say I've done a different job, in a way. Kerrang is all pre-recorded.
Is it? I didn't realise that.
Kerrang is all pre-recorded, but as a presenter in their early stages who clearly didn't know what they were doing at that point, it was a nice place to practice. It was a safe space to practice because I could record something, listening to it back, and be like, actually, I need to do this a little bit differently or whatever. I could learn quite easily. Radio X was all about that, getting as much information into 30 seconds before you hit the next song as possible, to leave the listener with something. And actually that technique and that skill has translated over to Radio 1, but I knew what I always wanted to do, and that was be on Radio 1 talking about music. And so I think I'm currently in my sweet spot right now. However, I wouldn't be where I am without the opportunities that I got from Kerrang and the opportunities that I got from Radio X and the things that I learned through there. So yeah, I would say I'm in my kind of sweet spot as a presenter at the moment. Not at my peak, hopefully. Hopefully I've got a little bit longer to go. But yeah, I think Radio 1 is a really, really good place for me at the moment.
How did MTV differ as well to those Kerrang?
Completely, actually.
Because your film, that's a completely new element.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was doing early when I first started with MTV. I was interviewing like Royal Blood and Green Day and Biffy Clyro,
massive,
which was huge for me. It was amazing. I remember interviewing Royal Blood. I was so nervous. Actually, no, Green Day. I was so nervous. Green Day was my first ever TV interview, and I did the same thing. And I reverted to the same thing that I did for Ed Shikari, and I just tried to cram every single little tiny detail I could about that band in my head. And in the end, I couldn't remember anything, because I was just so like, it was like I'm interviewing Green Day, and I just stressed myself out. So again, I learnt from that, but luckily they had me back. And since then, I've done a bit more poppy stuff. We've done like Live from V Festival and festival up in Liverpool this year as well, interviewing pop artists, and I quite enjoy that actually, because in a way, it's not pressure off because I've still got to do the job, but I feel my personality can just relax ever so slightly in that world a little bit more, because I think maybe the pop world is not so serious in terms of the dissecting the music. Yeah.
You've got quite a diverse portfolio, like everything you're kind of speaking about there, with all the different places.
Yeah.
Do you like to keep it like that way? I mean, Hopscotch, that's another element of it, because that preceded, when was that, 2015? It preceded Radio 1?
Yeah. So Hopscotch was when I was at Kerrang.
How did that idea kind of?
I was still living at home. It was the summer. I was in my garden. I was like, I want to do a night for new bands because I can't do it on Kerrang, so I want to try and do it myself. So I came up with this business idea. I pitched it to my dad, and my dad was like, right, here's some money, I'll help you start it up, but I want all that money back, and by this point, and if you don't, you're paying interest on it. So this was like a proper business deal that I basically struck with my dad.
It's a good incentive though.
It's a great incentive. Apart from when I booked my first band for £800. And yeah, and that was 80% of my money gone.
Who was the first band that you?
No, I'm not going to name names. I'll tell you afterwards. But yeah, I basically from that, as you probably gauged, I had no idea what I was doing at all. Right, this is a brand new band. They're getting the odd play here and there on Hugh, and I'm just, yes, we'll play for 800. But yes, of course we will. I'm like, this is easy, of course. So I expected loads of people to come down. Not 10 people came down for £10 a ticket. So well, no, I didn't make anything. I lost a huge amount of money. And I had to very quickly and strategically think about how I was going to turn this thing around. Otherwise, I was in debt for my dad and probably actually going to have to pick up another job alongside Kerrang because I wasn't doing it that regularly at the time. Luckily, I spent my last £150 on the Amazons
Little band, the Amazons.
The little old
Might
band.
have heard of them.
Yeah, little old band, the Amazons, who were coming up and I picked them up just at the right time. It was lucky. It is sometimes you just need a bit of luck. I'd moved venue as well. It wasn't as big as venue. It was 200. It's now 100 cap venue. Made money. Brilliant. Then but Will Joseph Cook when he was doing great at the time. But Bad Sounds, they were doing great at the time, and just sort of I got this momentum rolling, and the night started to pick up a bit of a name for itself. Made the money back, gave it back to my dad, and then I sort of changed the whole makeup a bit and how we run things. I won't go into details, so it's boring. But yeah, basically, that was how it started. I got a bit lucky.
Even that you've diversified though, because you did a tour like Apra and stuff for that.
Yeah.
Well. How does that differ with your mindset heading into it? Because that's obviously
the tour's
a different undertaking.
Taking new bands out on tour is hard as hell. Is hard as hell. Let me tell you that right now. We took Yonica, Antaros, and Stereo Honey out on tour. You know, Yonica are doing great now. Antaros, they're all doing brilliant, aren't they? But I remember one particular show in Sunderland that, it goes down in history. Let's just say that as being has been quite iconic for the Hopscotch tour, where I reckon again 10 people turned up for a bill of Yonica, Antaros, and Stereo Honey. Sunderland weren't having it; they didn't fancy it. But that's how it goes sometimes, you know.
There's a lot of luck in promoting.
Yeah, for new bands as well, you really got to work that really, really, really hard. And so learnt some lessons on that first one, and the second one was much better.
And you've also done the nights in London as well with the secret headliner.
Yeah, which is now...
You must have to build yourself to a point where you can put a secret headliner on, because that's tough.
Yeah,
getting people to come down when they don't know what they're going to say.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that without Radio 1. Helps with my connections and stuff like that. But also, I think the attitude and energy that we give out on the show and offer on the show, all the bands and artists that have played as secret headliners share that as well and understand that that's a really important part of it. And all those big secret headliners have all played for free. They've all played for free because they've bought in to the value of the night, or they think it holds value and is a great place for alternative music to thrive.
What is the venue you do it down in London? It's actually quite refreshing to hear that as well, that bands are still that interested in building almost like a sense of community and helping.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Grassroots.
Honestly, it was an idea I had, and I've pitched it to Frank Carter's team because we got on really well when they came onto the show and they loved it. And I was like, okay, well maybe I can sort of work this out elsewhere. We do it at Seabright Arms in London, and it's a pub, and it has a basement venue. Actually, it's very similar to King Tut's, but the opposite way around. So rather than the venue being on the top, it's underneath the bar, right?
Is it 300 cap as well, around that?
A bit smaller, 200 cap.
200 cap.
And they very kindly give me money to book the smaller bands, to make sure the smaller bands are getting enough cash to, at very least, cover their costs, because I don't want to leave them out of pocket at all. And I want it to be a rewarding experience for them. And that's part of the reason we do the secret headliner thing as well, because when we book the secret headliner, there are queues out the door and the venue's packed for the first band. And so, for example, Heavy Rapids, who we had on recently, when they come down all the way from up here to play Hopscotch down in London, they don't want to pay to 15 people. Being first on, you know, they want to play to a packed room. And it wasn't like full, but it was packed. You know, there were loads of people in there watching them, and loads of people have great things to say about them afterwards, and that's rewarding and worth their time. So that's the other reason that we do it.
It gives bands that, again, like you did with the show, it gives bands a platform, introduces them to new people.
And that's what I wanted it to be from the very start. I love booking the secret headliners, and making those moments, don't get me wrong, but it is about the new bands for me, and giving them a moment and a chance to thrive.
Do you think that's a through line throughout all your work, from student radio to Hopscotch to Radio 1, trying to give bands a platform? Do you think that's something that's going to carry the whole way through? Yeah, we did it at student radio as well. Me and my friend produced it and I presented it. We did a new music show, and we did sessions with bands in this little box room, and we tried to mic them up and did it horrendously, and the mixes were terrible, but we still did it. And it's always been the theme that's run through everything that I've always done. And tonight in Glasgow at King Tut's, why did you decide to put that gig on in King Tut's? Why did that? Because of how exciting the scene is up here, and because of the mantra that Hopscotch holds, I wanted to reflect that. But I didn't want to reflect it in London. I wanted to reflect it
I wanted to reflect it where it's happening at this moment in time.
In a way, it almost draws more attention to it as well, because people are like, why is Jack Saunders trekking all the way up to rainy Glasgow to go and
It's
put
been a
on a
lovely
show?
day actually today.
It has actually. It's been very
day.
dry. You've gotten
Yeah,
lucky.
we got lucky, didn't we? But I know what you mean, and
It's almost, it's like pulling the spotlight from London up to Glasgow even further, you know.
which is incredibly important. We're all, like, down in London, we are all guilty of expecting everyone and everything to come to us and revolve around us. It's where the majority of the music industry is. I'm not bashing the music industry, by the way. It's just how it is. So
It's never going to change. It's always
yeah, exactly. So for me, it was really important to cut that cycle a little bit, get out of that bubble, and go to the place where the excitement is. And that's not me jumping on the bandwagon. That's me with the thought process going, actually, I want to use the clout that I have and hold and do some good with it, like an indie Batman, right? Something like that.
Yeah, but like Robin Hood as well.
Yeah. Any vigilante you want me to be, I'll be it.
I've got a couple left. I think you were kind of pushing it half
Okay,
an hour, so I've got a few left. I thought, when I was looking through your career and kind of revising it and studying it, there are various landmarks. You've obviously got Student Radio, and then Kerrang, then Radio X, Radio 1, we spoke about all them, Hopscotch. But there was one that I thought was a particularly big landmark, and that's Gogglebox.
Yes. You know what? Gogglebox was a huge landmark for me. It really was. That was so much fun.
Yeah,
so
it looked a lot
much
of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
When did you get asked to do that?
I got asked to do that very last minute, actually. They asked Youngblood to do it, and then they knew that me and him are kind of matey, so our matey, our friends, yeah. And so asked me to do it alongside him, which is great. And so I had a lot of people asking me, "Oh my God, is that your house?" I was like, first of all, no, that wasn't my house.
Is that Youngblood's house?
It's not Youngblood's house.
Did they just put you in a house?
No, so what they did is they rented out a room in the Langham Hotel, which is a hotel, quite a posh hotel next to the BBC. And they rented it out and just stuck us in it last minute. And so, but I had loads of people coming up to me going, "God, was that your house? God, you're doing well." I was like, "No, trust me, that is not my house." Yeah, and I don't know whether I should give away how they recorded it or not. I don't know whether I'm going to crush some dreams.
Did they put a camera like next to the TV, or how does it actually work?
So they have a small TV, and you're all sat on the sofa. You've got snacks in front of you. They've got the camera just behind the TV, and then this is the bit that's going to give it away. You watch 20-minute segments. So you watch specific 20-minute segments of the show. So the segments that they put in, you watch those bits, and they kind of give you context around it. And then you react to it as you do, but sometimes I don't actually know if I should be giving this. No, I don't think I should be. I don't think I should be giving this away. I don't know. I'll
chat to you about it after.
After. Yeah, good idea. Yeah, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, mate.
What sort of stuff were you watching on it?
I
did watch it, but I can't find it online to revisit it.
We watched the classic Halloween film Halloween. We watched Strictly Come Dancing. We watched The Chase, and there was another game show as well. Oh, University Challenge, which I got a question right on, by the way.
That's a tough game show.
I know, it's a tough game show, and I'm excelling, clearly. That was good fun.
Yeah. Got one left.
Yeah, go on.
Are you familiar with the band Suede?
Suede?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of Suede, yeah. I know Suede.
I've been reading his memoir lately, his first memoir. So I was watching interviews with him and stuff on YouTube, and he was on the Swedish talk show, and one of the other guests on it had a record collection of only 2 albums. That was their entire record collection.
Okay.
The Beatles Revolver
and
Sgt. Pepper, and that was the only 2 records she had in her collection. I'm a big music fan.
Yeah.
If you had to condense your record collection to just 2 albums,
oh my God, that's
what 2 albums?
Great question, mate.
And why?
Really good question. Oh, I wish you'd warned me. We're going to be here for a while. No, don't worry. No, it was a really good question. Hold on. Right, let me think about this then. It's kind of like a desert island situation, right? If I can take two with me, sort of thing. Okay, it's going to have to be the debut album from Arctics, as we spoke about before, and how much I love them. That's one. And the second would probably be. See, I wanted to say Songs for the Deaf by Queens, but no, I do love that. I'm going to say Songs for the Deaf by Queens. Yeah. Both those albums.
2 very good choices.
Yeah, 2 fantastic albums. And songs that I've spoken about why I like the Arctics album earlier on, but Songs for the Deaf opened my world to rock and roll.
Probably one of the best rock albums of all time.
Yeah, it is one of the best rock albums of all time. But opened my world into all sorts of different, just all sorts of different styles and ideas, and how you can go about writing rock music in different ways. And
I mean, they're a fascinating band because they're revolving door members and changing it up all the time and keeping it fresh.
Josh Homme is just an absolute wizard. He's amazing.
Is that your favourite Queen's album? Yeah, I go like Clockwork. But
I like Clockwork.
Yeah.
There's some great songs on there. But culturally and how important it is, Songs to the Deaf.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Mate, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. Cheers.